All right, welcome to the Explainer. In this one, we're going to be looking at a pretty specific worldview, straight from a Christian curriculum. And get this, it says every single person on the planet fits into one of just 5 spiritual categories.
So, we're diving straight into an adult curriculum called Come and See, and we're going to use its own words, its own diagrams, to really understand how it defines this first category, a state it calls being lost.
But before we can really get what it means to be lost according to this framework, we've got to take a step back and look at the bigger picture, the spiritual map that it lays out for us.
Okay, so the whole worldview in this material is organized into a big system they call the flow. It's got a bunch of different parts, but for our purposes, we're going to zoom in on the specific piece that sorts people into different types.
And that piece, the real core of it for us today, is something the text calls the 5 disciples.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. The curriculum makes a pretty bold claim that every single person on Earth, yet everyone, can be sorted into one of these 5 groups: the lost, lovers, learners, leaders, or lifers.
So let's start at the beginning. How exactly does this curriculum define that very first category? It's time to zoom right in on what it means to be the lost.
Right away, you can see how the source material visualizes this. The lost are shown in a state of, well, darkness and separation. Look at the figure there, in the shadows, bound by chains, and completely outside the light that's coming from the cross.
Then, the curriculum gives us a formal definition, and it uses some very specific theological language. It describes this group as being wrongly and rebelliously related to the God of the Bible. It talks about being spiritually blind and stubborn, and in a state it calls being spiritually dead sinners.
And to really hammer home the seriousness of this condition, the curriculum uses quotes like this one. This particular one is from J.C. Ryle, and it's meant to show just how high the stakes are in their view.
Okay, but here's a really interesting twist. The curriculum doesn't just say you're either lost or you're not. It actually breaks lostness down into 3 different subcategories, or conditions. First up, we have what it calls the lost. This is for people the curriculum sees as being in a permanent or final state of being lost. To explain this, it uses a sports analogy, which is kind of clever. Think about a game. You know how a team can be losing at halftime? Well, the text says that while some teams make a comeback, not all of them do. And in the same way, it argues that not everyone who is currently lost will eventually be saved. For some, it says that the game is over and the final score is set.
All right, the second type of lostness is a little different. It's called the lost and gone astray. This one is all about wandering and trying to find your own way back. Relying on yourself.
And to frame this idea, the material brings in quotes from big names like Martin Luther. The whole point here seems to be that being lost in this way isn't about having bad intentions, it's just about being on the wrong path entirely. The analogy they use for this one is pretty powerful. Imagine a hiker who gets lost in the woods, but instead of trying to get rescued, they just set up camp. They decide, you know what, this is my new home. The curriculum says this creates a total illusion of being found, when in reality, you're still completely and fundamentally lost. And that brings us to the third and final category within lostness, and this one's a big one. It's called the lost and found. And it's basically a transitional state. It represents the actual moment of salvation, according to the text.
For this, they use an analogy I think we can all relate to. You know that feeling when you've lost your keys and you're freaking out, and then, boom, you find them? That relief, that joy. The source says that's like the joy in heaven when a person is found. But, and this is super important, it doesn't stop there. The curriculum says that once you're found, you get a new job. You're now supposed to go out and find other people who are lost.
So you see, this whole framework, it's not just about describing different types of people. According to the source, it's prescriptive. It's meant to push you towards a very direct and very urgent call to action.
And it's really clear about what that action is. For anyone it considers to be in the lost category, the curriculum lays out a very specific 5-step path. It's all about personal action, crying out, confessing, repenting. You can see it right there.
But then, for those who are considered found, the instructions completely change. The focus shifts entirely to outreach. The message is simple and direct. Go out into the world and actively find the people who are still in that lost category.
And to wrap up this whole section, the curriculum drives home its point with a series of pretty intense warnings. Everything is designed to create a sense of eternal urgency.
It uses these powerful quotes, like this one here from C.S. Lewis, to warn against getting too comfortable or complacent in your spiritual life. The idea it's pushing is that the most dangerous road to hell isn't some dramatic, scary path. It's the easy, gentle one.
And check out this quote from the preacher Charles Spurgeon. It's incredibly vivid, right? The curriculum uses this to really underscore what it sees as the massive responsibility of the found, that they have to actively get involved and warn the lost. So when you boil it all down, the Come and See curriculum isn't presenting this as some abstract theological debate, not at all. It's framing this whole thing as a critical, black and white, and eternal choice, a choice that it says every single person has to make.